morning, Green Valley. Who's happy to be in church today? Yeah, got some real enthusiasm there. Hey, it's great for you to be here. I'm glad to be here as well, man. I'm just excited about what we have to talk about today. I'm really pumped up, so just be careful, okay? Because the coach might come out of me in just a moment here, a second. But hey, if you're new, let me just kind of bring you up to speed on the series we're in. We're in this series called The Word. And what we've been doing is we're looking at the Gospel of John, and we've been looking at what Jesus said and what he did. And John wrote the Gospel for this reason. In John chapter 20, verse 31, he says, so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And what we're seeing in John is that Jesus is the embodiment of God, which means if you want to know what God looks like, all you have to do is look at the life of Christ. And the way that John decided to introduce Jesus to the world in his gospel is he said, in the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word became human and made his home among us. And he's talking about Christ. And it's just been a great series. And the big idea of this whole series is this: if it's worth believing, if Jesus is worth believing, then it's worth living. Now, in this series is today where we make the switch. We've been talking about what Jesus said. Now, for all the way through Easter, we're going to talk about what Jesus did. Now, how many of you have heard the phrase, and I think all of us have, actions speak louder than words? Raise your hand real high. Yeah. And they do. They say action. I love this meme. It says they say actions speak louder than words. So instead of telling you how I feel, I'm just going to punch you in the throat. But what is also true is that actions prove whether the words we speak have any power or any worth. Now, we live in a world that's sharing a lot of opinions, a lot of words. Here's some statistics. About 500 million tweets happen per day worldwide, roughly 6,000 tweets per second, like right now, 6,000 tweets. On TikTok, it's estimated around 117 million video or posts uploaded per day, 22,000 per minute. On Instagram, about 95 million posts per day are shared globally. And there are about 4 to 4.5 million podcasts globally. Listen, a lot of words. Everybody's got an opinion. I love this one quote. It says, if opinions burned calories, we'd all be incredibly in shape. But here's the question that I have and I wrestle with, and I want to pose to all of us. What are you doing to back up those words? Anybody can post. Anybody can comment. Anybody can record a podcast. Anyone can make a video and share it. But words alone don't change anything. Only actions reveal whether those words are of any value or carry any power. And the bottom line is this: if you truly believe in something, then your actions should match your words. Now, this is what made Jesus so different. He wasn't some religious leader who sat in some temple or church or synagogue or mosque pontificating about how people should live or what they should do or how they should think. He actually backed up every word, every truth that he spoke with his own actions. And in our story today, this is one of the most powerful moments in the gospel because Jesus didn't just make claims about who he was, he actually demonstrated it. Now, let me give you some context before we go into the story today. So Jesus is about 2 weeks from the crucifixion on the timeline here. And it's very tense because he's got the religious people who don't like him because he's undermining their religious control over people's minds and hearts. And he's also got a government that doesn't want him to do any rebellion against the country. But he's also got a ton of followers who are following him as well. And what he's going to do here is a miracle in this story. Now, this is important because in the Gospel of John, John only picked 7 miracles to share. Now, Jesus did a lot more miracles. There's more in the other Gospels, but he only chose 7 to help illustrate who Jesus was. And this is the 7th one. And this is how the story goes. A man named Lazarus was sick. He lived in Bethany with his sisters, Mary and Martha. This is the Mary who later poured an expensive perfume on the Lord's feet and wiped them with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was sick, so the two sisters sent a message to Jesus telling him, Lord, your dear friend is very sick. Now Lazarus is no mere acquaintance. Other than the disciples, he's probably the closest guy friend he has on earth. But when Jesus heard about this, he said, Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God will receive glory from this. Now, if you want to do this on your own today and follow along, this is a little fact. This is the first of 5 times where Jesus will refer to why this miracle is going to happen. So although Jesus loved Martha and Mary and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. Now that decision, for some of us, if we don't know the whole story, seems very difficult because it seems very dismissive of his friends. It'd be like saying, hey, I'm in the emergency room and you reply, praying for you, let's grab coffee next week. It seems very, like I don't really care. But there's a reason for Jesus' delay. It wasn't a lack of love. It was actually a part of a bigger purpose. So pay close attention to what happens next. Finally, he says to his disciples after the 2 days, let's go back to Judea. Now listen to what the disciples say. But his disciples objected. Rabbi, they said, only a few days ago, the people in Judea were trying to stone you. Are you going there again? Now what they're referring to, if you want to do some study, is John chapter 10. In John chapter 10, Jesus makes 2 declarations about himself. One is that he and the Father are one, and the other one is that he described himself as the Son of God or actually being God. And because of that, the religious leader says that's blasphemy and they wanted to stone them. So they had to flee the city and they got away. But then he said, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, and now I'll go wake him up. The disciples said, Lord, if he's sleeping, he'll soon get up, be better. Then they thought that Jesus meant Lazarus simply sleeping, but Jesus meant Lazarus had died. So he sees this, and he says plainly, no, Lazarus is dead, and for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. That's a key line. And for your sakes, I'm glad I wasn't there. For now, you will really believe. Come, let's go see him. Now, let's understand this moment right now. Jesus' delay is going to reveal his power and authority so clearly that not only will the people believe in him, but the religious leaders will be so angered and so afraid of him that will actually seal his doom. They will actually make a plan to put him on the cross. Now, Jesus knows this. And knowing this, he goes anyway. So if anybody wants to try to describe Jesus as some kind of pacifist, that he doesn't have courage, that he's not, really somebody that can stand in the midst of real tension, this is it. He looks death in the face and says, I'm going anyway. I mean, that's the kind of leader I like. Now, here's what I want you to take away from the rest of what I'm going to say today, okay? Our actions prove the power of Jesus' words, of his words. Meaning, if we're Christ followers, Jesus wants our actions to prove what we believe. So today, I just want to give you 3 things Jesus did in this story that prove his words were true and how we are called to do the same thing. There's 3 things he did. Jesus responded, Jesus prayed, and he celebrated. Let's jump into this first one. Jesus responded. When faced with a broken situation, there always has to be a response. Even not responding sometimes is a response. And sometimes that means going into difficult places to do difficult things. And that's not always our first response. Remember the disciples, right? What did they say to Jesus? Hey, wait, hold on. When Jesus said, let's go back to Judea, he goes, hey, hang on for a second. Only days ago, the people were trying to stone you there. Are you going there again? In other words, Jesus, quick reminder, they tried to kill you and they're going to try to kill us too. And this is why I love John's recording of this incident, this interaction, because he records Thomas, the disciples' next comment. And I'm pretty sure that Thomas next comment is filled with sarcasm. Like he says to the guys, he says, well, okay, let's go too, and let's die with Jesus. Like, well, I guess we're all dying today, so everybody grab your sandals. Honestly, I think that's how it went off. They all go, okay, well, this is it. But this story is not about Jesus going back to Judea. It's about what he's going to do there. So upon arriving in Judea, Martha comes out to greet Jesus, and she says this, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that God will give you whatever you ask. In other words, that first line is, well, it's really your fault he died. And Jesus told her, your brother will rise again. Yes, Martha said, he will rise when everyone else rises on the last day. And Jesus told her, wait a minute. I'm the resurrection and the life, and anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never, ever die. Do you believe this, Martha? Yes, Lord, she told him. Goes on. When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. In other words, it's kind of your fault. When Jesus saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Then Jesus wept. Now, let's take this apart for a second. I want you to notice a couple things. First of all, notice how Jesus responds to Martha. Now, Martha's kind of this really strong, very person that has a lot of logic and it's very analytical. And what she needs in this moment is she needs some reassurance of the hope in him. So he immediately says to her, he kind of gives her this theological explanation about who he is. Why? To offer hope in this moment that everything's going to be okay and he's going to take stuff. Now, Mary, he responds much differently. Mary's different. She's wired different, just like we're all wired different. She's more emotional. So what does Jesus do? He doesn't give her a theological explanation. He actually starts to mourn with her. He starts to be in her world. And yes, this is tough. And I feel anger about this, and I'm struggling with it as well. And all I want you to see from that is Jesus, when he responds to us, he always responds to what our need is and how we're wired up. He has that ability to meet us right where we're at and give us what we need. Now let's take a look at how he responds to Lazarus' death. It says that a deep anger welled up within him and he was deeply troubled. Now, why is Jesus angry? Well, it's for the same reason you and I feel sadness and get angry when someone that we love passes away. It's the same reason we feel pain. It's the same reason we feel grief, sometimes even rage. And here's why. Jesus' anger is a righteous anger, and it's rooted in love. But the reason why he's angry is because we were never supposed to die. That was not in the original plan. That was not in creation. And even though we messed up original creation, his love is so passionate for us, even in those moments, that he's angry that we have to experience death ourselves. And so in this anger, he's going to do some incredible things. He says, where have you put him, he asked. They told him, Lord, come and see. Jesus was still angry as he arrived in the tomb. A cave with a stone rolled across its entrance. Roll the stone aside, Jesus told them. But Martha, the dead man's sister, protested, Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. The smell will be terrible. Now we have to pause here, okay? Because I think where Martha's at is this. She thinks that Jesus, wants maybe to say his last goodbyes to Lazarus and he wants to see him. But because he's been dead for 4 days and they don't have like all this, the embalming fluid or the things that we have, Lazarus at this point is a full decay and it's got a reek in there. So while she's trying to be compassionate to where Jesus is at in his anger, she's also trying to offer him a taste of reality. And I mean, can you imagine the stink of 4 days dead? Yes, you can. Because you've walked into a high school boy's room at one point or other. And you have said, what died in here? It's bad. But nevertheless, Jesus says, roll the stone aside. Now let me point out another observation here. Jesus doesn't need help rolling the stone aside. He can do that himself. Why does he ask the people to do it? Now listen carefully. Jesus always wants us to participate in his miracles. He always loves for us to participate in his miracles. And what Jesus is asking for specifically here is for people to participate, listen closely, people to participate in the miracle by eliminating the thing that keeps Lazarus from hearing and seeing Jesus. Now, I'm going to repeat that one more time. What Jesus is asking for here is for people to participate in the miracle by eliminating, moving the stone away, the thing that keeps Lazarus from hearing and seeing Jesus. And here's the deal. He calls us to do the same thing. Jesus said to his followers, he says, you're the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. Notice the emphasis on good deeds so people can do what? See God. Jesus never intended for our faith to be just words. Our faith should always move us to action to remove the stones that keep people from seeing and hearing Jesus. So in this first response of Jesus, there's some questions we have to ask ourselves about our actions backing up our words. Because here's the truth, and I'm just being honest with you. If we believe Matthew 25, where Jesus says that what we do for the least of these, we do for Christ, do our actions back that up? How are we caring for the least of these in our world? How are we participating in some way to help people in the most difficult circumstances? Do we say we believe the church is the bride of Christ, which the Bible describes it as, the bride of Christ? That's what the church is. How are our actions proving that? How are we investing our time, energy, even our finances to build and support her? Do we want to see families restored and delivered from the grips of hurt, habits, and hang-ups? Are we willing to prove that by our actions, by showing up? Maybe showing up to celebrate recovery and helping at the landing or celebration place so that adults and parents can be in here and get over their hurt, habits, and hang-ups. Do we say the gospel is the greatest news in the world? Then how are we doing helping that message reach people? Do we believe we are supposed to speak up for those who have no voice? Then where are we standing in the gap for people in our community, in our world, in our families, in our schools? At some point, my words, your words, our church's words, they have to back up what we believe. So the question isn't if we respond, it's how we're going to respond. Where will you serve? Where will you give? Where will you help? What stone is Jesus calling you to roll away so others can hear and see him? There's another action that Jesus takes that's sometimes really overlooked. Now, Jesus prayed. He says this, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. Now listen to what he says here. This is really key. But I said it out loud for the sake of all the people standing here so that they will believe you sent me. Notice he could have prayed a nice soft prayer like this, quietly. Oh, fine. But there's a reason why he prayed out loud at that moment. It was for the benefit of those who were in doubt of who he was. Now, here's the question we have to ask ourselves. Why does Jesus need to pray? Let's start there. It almost seems like a pointless prayer. Jesus is part of the Godhead, the Trinity, God the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. He has all the power to act. He's not trying to pray to access power to help raise Lazarus from the dead. No, he's capable of answering his own prayer. The prayer seems unnecessary. I love this one kid who prayed this prayer that seems unnecessary, but he was sincere about it. Little boy at bedtime, it says, "Dear God, I just want to pray for you tonight because you have a lot going on. There are wars, there's sick people and storms and a lot of problems in our world. So I just wanted to check in and make sure you're doing okay." And then he paused and said, "And if you need any help, just let me know." Kind of a pointless prayer. Now, here's why I bring this up. Now, okay, stay with me. Jesus is not praying to gain access to power. He has the power. His prayer is an action that proves his relationship with the Father, and it reveals what he believes about that relationship. His Father always listens to his prayers, and he and the Father are one. And he wants everyone to know it. Hold that thought. So after he prays, Lazarus comes out, and the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave clothes, his face wrapped in a hidden cloth, and Jesus told them, "Unwrap him and let him go." Now let's just indulge ourselves in this moment for a minute. This guy's been dead for 4 days, and during those 4 days, he's been in heaven. The Bible tells us heaven is there's no weeping, crying, or pain. And I think Lazarus' first response to come out was, "Do I have to?" And I think he's getting the raw end of the deal here because now he's got to leave heaven and he's got to die again. That doesn't sound fun. But he responds to the power of Christ, and he's still wrapped in his grave clothes. So he's got to, hop out like this to get out of the tomb. And what Jesus says next is really interesting too. It says, "Unwrap him and let him go." Again, Jesus is having them participate in the miracle. Got the front end with the stone. They got the back end. Let me just tell you something. If you were one of the crowd and you got to participate in rolling the stone away and unwrapping Lazarus, you would have not only been the most sold out believer in Jesus, but you would have told that story for your whole entire life over to where people would get nauseated from it. See what's going on here? It would be a testimony of the power of God through you and other people. But here's what I want you to see on this whole point. The power of Jesus was preceded by prayer. Prayers are not pointless. Prayers are not something we just do. It's actually a very powerful thing because the act of prayer is the evidence of our relationship with Christ and what we believe about him. And it tells the world who Jesus is to us. A friend of mine, his name was Tim Cockrell, and he used to be the youth pastor. He's now in heaven. God allowed him to lose his battle with cancer. That's the way he would say it. And so now he's in eternity, but he was just a wonderful youth pastor here. And anybody that's been here knows Tim. He was just an amazing guy, but he had this vision. And I was the supervisor for our youth ministry at the time, and he cast the vision to me. It was awesome. And the vision was, in wintertime, he'd like to have a community event where he invites the community of kids, and he'd like to put snow on this back hill back here. And before there were all the things back there, like the portables, it was just a free hill, like a little hill. And so he wanted to put all snow on there and create a snowboard ramp so people could do some tricks off the snowboard ramp and they have fun. And during the wintertime. And so the way to do that is to get a bunch of snow from Tahoe and put it back here and have this one night where there's cocoa, there's hot dogs, there's all kinds of stuff going on, music playing, a community event. I loved it. I thought it was great. So he got as many pickups as he could to commit to going up to Tahoe and get snow for us during winter on one particular weekend. And I was like, 500 cars. It doesn't matter. It was a lot. But the problem is as we got there, slowly people started, bailing out because of one thing or another. So he got down to like 3 pickups. And so there's no way 3 pickups is going to put enough snow over here to make that event work. So we're sitting in there trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so we're exhausting every idea. We're talking about this and that and calling this place and blah, 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 seeing if we can move it to blah. It was just about an hour's worth. Finally, we just came to the conclusion we're going to have to cancel the event. Now, he had already put out flyers in the community. He already get to other youth groups. The schools, the whole thing. This thing he's going to have to cancel is a big deal. So after that, we're sitting there after we say, okay, we're just gonna have to cancel. It was kind of quiet for 1 minute. And I don't know who said it, but it wasn't Tim and it wasn't me. I think it was one of the youth leaders, one of the kids that was one of the youth leaders. And they said, well, why don't we pray? And Tim and I are kind of looking at each other. Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea. It's just amazing when you realize, oh yeah, you're kind of stupid. So Tim and I go, yeah, let's pray. So we prayed. We both prayed. Other people prayed. We prayed, God, help us figure this out. Now, there's 2 days before the event. After the prayer, we're like, okay, now what do we do? I kid you not. I'm not making this up. Pastors make up stories or extrapolate on stories. They don't make them up, but they kind of stretch them a little far. This actually happened. A few hours later, somebody called who heard that some of our pickups, they were connected to our church loosely through families. They didn't even go here. But this person ran a bunch of tractor trailers. And so he called and said, hey, I heard you have a little problem getting snow down to this thing. I think this is a great idea. He says, I've got like 18 tractor trailers. How can I help? He gave us 6 double trailers to go up to Tahoe and bring the snow back. That there was more snow on that hill than there was in Tahoe. And it was an amazing event. My point is sometimes prayer, we don't see the necessity of it, or we think it's kind of an afterthought, but yet it's how we access the power of God. And every kid in that room who saw us pray and saw God answer that prayer, their faith was strengthened because of that prayer action, the action that we took. So here's my challenge. It's to all of us, my staff, me, volunteers. Okay, you might not like it, but I'm going to challenge you. Anyone who follows Christ, the next time somebody asks you for prayer, would you pray for me? Don't just promise to pray for them. Pray for them right then at that moment. Now, it might feel uncomfortable. You might be like, oh, I've never done that before. And you're scared, but who cares? You don't have to do a prayer like, oh, God, help them. You don't have to do that. But prayer is an action that we can take that proves our words, and shows the world what we believe about God. We are in relationship with him, and we believe he can meet your need. Now, here's why this is so important. When people ask you to pray for them, they believe you believe prayer works, even if they might not believe it. They believe you believe it. So if you don't help them, what are you doing? You're saying, well, maybe I don't believe it either. Pray for them. The second thing is they need to hear what you pray over them. They need to hear that because it'll help their faith grow when you're expressing your faith. And here's the third thing. When you pray and it's answered, they'll remember you, and whatever was blocking their vision to Christ, that stone will be moved away because you prayed and God answered. Are you with me on that? I told you the coach might come out, so Jesus gives us, he responds, right? He does something active, but he also prays in this moment. Okay, here's the last thing that Jesus does. He celebrates. Now look what happens after Lazarus' resurrection. This is the part of the story that not many people read, okay? 6 days before the Passover celebration began, Jesus arrived in Bethany, the home of Lazarus, the man he had raised from the dead. A dinner was prepared in Jesus' honor. Martha served, and Lazarus was among those who ate with them. They're having a big party to celebrate Jesus and what he had done, okay? The whole community was involved. Now listen to this, okay? Here we go. When all the people heard of Jesus' arrival, they flocked to see him and also to see Lazarus, the man Jesus had raised from the dead. Now think about that. You heard this happen, and it's a community event, and you want to go, and I want to see the evidence. I want to see it right there. Can you imagine this party and some of the comments that might have been said to Lazarus? Because, he knew a lot of people in the community. Can you imagine some of the comments, the ribbing that went on? Hey, there goes Lazarus, dead man walking. Or hey, someone get this guy a Tic Tac, man. His breath smells like a crypt. Or maybe Martha says, hey, Lazarus, why don't you do the dishes? It won't kill you. Now, I'm going to pause right there and divert, but I'm going to come back. How many of you love celebrating? How many of you love celebrating? Okay. Hopefully everybody. I love celebrating, but my wife has the ability to celebrate at anything. And especially at weddings, she loves to dance, and dancing's always a part of her celebration. I was looking through my videos, there's a bunch of her dancing in different ways. She loves to dance. Now, she tells me at weddings, don't dance because I can't, but she loves to do it, and everything's a celebration to her. I'm telling you, this is real. This happened while we were at miniature golf. This is my wife miniature golfing right here. And that's my daughter who's embarrassed right now. I love celebrating. Now, the reason why I say this is because it's part of our job to celebrate as Christ followers. Stay with me. You've probably heard this idea, dancing on the graves of your enemies. You probably heard that. It's a symbolic act that, I'm so glad that we killed them. I'm glad that there's no more threat and we don't have to deal with it anymore. What's happening here is that in this celebration, they're dancing for a different reason. They're dancing on an empty grave because the tomb is emptied of its power. That's why they're celebrating. That's why they're dancing. Now, for some of us, when it comes to Christ following and celebrating, we get a little nervous about that because there can tend to be a danger that we would go down a road of being prideful. Like, look what God is doing at our church or through me or something like that. And that is real. That's a real danger. But it doesn't mean that the principle of celebration is not important, because when we celebrate, there's a couple things that happen that are really important. And that's what's happening here. It takes what Jesus did and makes it public. So that celebration where people were coming over to see Lazarus, it was fully public in the community. Everybody wanted to see it and see what happened. Lazarus was the living presence, the evidence of Jesus' authority over death. The second thing it does, it builds anticipation of what Christ will do next. I love what Tom Peters says. It says, celebrate what you want to see more of. And what I want to see more of is I want to see more lives transformed in the name of Christ. I want to see more people who are broken be healed. I want to see more people who are lost come to know Christ. I want to see more people find the abundant life that Christ wants for them. That's what it does. When you see and start to celebrate what is happening already, it builds an anticipation for more of those things. But here's the thing about celebrating that you need to understand in the spiritual realm. Celebrating what Christ has done always comes at a cost. The Bible says the leading priest decided to kill Lazarus too, for it was because of him that many people had deserted them and believed in Jesus. And here's the truth. The more stones we roll away, the harder darkness fights to keep people in the tomb. But every bit of resistance only proves that Christ is at work. So the more resistance we feel as Christ followers and a church, the more we're going to celebrate. So let's celebrate today some of the things that have been going on through Green Valley and the transformations that is going through Green Valley. How many will celebrate with me today? Okay, raise your hands. Then you better be enthusiastic, okay? All right. Here we go. This last year, a couple months, 42 people right here in the auditorium were baptized. That's right. 29 more people are already signed up for May to be baptized right here in this auditorium. Since the beginning of this year, over 40 people have raised their hand for first-time salvation. Right here, God is doing work. In 2 weeks, we are taking 8 high schoolers for their first time on their first mission trip to New York City. This is their first time to get out of this area and do something for Christ. We are excited about that. Big Wednesdays has had its biggest semester yet. Over 450 people every Wednesday are here taking time out to grow with their relationship with God. At the beginning of this semester, Little's Place had one volunteer, but we did the ask and you guys took action. Now we got a team of 13 people that take care of our babies and our young people so everybody else can be in the classes. So let me leave you with two quick celebration stories. A 17-year-old who's on our crew in high school. Our crew is like a group of kids that just want to take that next step in their relationship with God. He really wanted to be able to share his faith. So Joe's been working with him. And last Monday night, he was the person that brought the message to the high schoolers, and he did a fabulous job. Think about that. And let me finish with this story. One of our elders, God has given him, he's retired, and God's given him this ministry of just kind of helping people who are really, really hurting and in tough places and financially strapped. So he goes to people's houses that have no money, and like he'll fix a pipe and he does a little electrical work. He's just kind of a man of all stuff. So he went to this one woman's house and he was there to fix a pipe, and he had bought the pipe out of his own money and he was fixing the pipe. As they were talking, this is what he found out. He found out, and he could see it as evidence, that the woman this last winter was using her dining room table as wood to keep her warm. You know what he does? He gets her to our wood ministry where she gets wood every week, and she wasn't cold one moment for the rest of the winter. Listen, Green Valley, we're going to be relentless in rolling the stones away so people can see Jesus. We will not let darkness intimidate us, make us cower in fear, or grow weary in the fight. Until Jesus comes back, we will serve, we will give, we will help, because our words are only as powerful as our actions. And if Jesus is worth believing in, then he's worth living for. God bless you guys.